Welcome back. Well, this week, Fairfax Chairman Roger Corbett spoke to Sky News Business and talked about a host of things, including that falling share price of Fairfax and also the decision to give a board seat to a man seen by some as an ally of Gina Rinehart. That was Hungry Jack's millionaire and founder Jack Cohen. We'll get James Manning's view on all of this in a moment, but first, here's what Mr Corbett had to say when asked about the potential sale of the radio business.
No, our radio business is a very good business and it's been extremely well managed. And I think it's got quite an upside for Fairfax for the future.
James, obviously there's been a lot of focus on this. We knew John Singleton certainly was interested in the radio business. What did you make of Mr Corbett's comments?
It was a pretty short answer, didn't he? And he just, I think all he really said was that the radio is a good asset. But he didn't really come out and say it's not for sale, did he? Or it's definitely, you know, we're not talking to anybody anymore. And I think a lot's been read into his comments there that perhaps other people are seeing that we're certainly not.
Just wanted to also turn to, obviously there's been a lot of speculation as well about the appointment of Jack Cohen to the board, seen as a bit of a mediator for the board between the major shareholder Gina Rinehart, who of course wants those board seats. This is what Mr Corbett had to say about that appointment of Jack Cohen.
Well, look, I would never make any comment about any director joining the board. My discussions with someone who might be joining the board, that's confidential discussion, whether it's Jack Cohen or Gina Rinehart or James Miller or anyone else who might be talking to me about joining the Fairfax board. Jack Cohen was invited to join the Fairfax board because the Fairfax board judged that Jack would make a very valuable contribution to that board in his own right as an independent, and I'm sure he will, and I look forward very much to working with him. I've known him for a long, long time. He's a man that I have the highest of regard for, and I think he'll make a great contribution to the Fairfax board.
What exactly, practically, what would that mean? What would he bring to Fairfax meetings?
Well, first of all, he brings, he's a very sharp, clever, successful man. He's got an entrepreneurial flair and he's very shrewd. So, you know, they're the type of basic human skills that are very, very important in business. But he's also had enormous experience over a lifetime. He's a very experienced man, good judgment, but he's run a very successful business himself, so the credentials are there. And of course, he's been on the board of Channel 10 where he's made a lot of money personally, despite the fact of Channel 10 having its present problems along with everyone else in the media industry. So yes, no, I'm delighted to have Jack on the board, as are my colleagues on the board.
So James, what did you make of the comments there in terms of the board?
Yeah, well, it's great hearing and then seeing Roger Corbett, isn't it? Talk like that, it makes you feel a little bit calmer about Fairfax's future. And Jack Cohen would be a great asset, I think, and it's good to hear him. They reinforce, look, he's coming on for what he offers. He's not coming on as an intermediary for Gina Rinehart or to sort of broker peace, but he's got a lot we think he can offer. So yeah, once he gets in there, and he's very well connected in the media, of course, not to just Gina Rinehart, but right across the board. So, you know, it can help Fairfax manoeuvre maybe some, you know, partnerships with other people. Who knows what could be down the track for them.
Gina Rinehart?
Yeah, maybe.
All right. And just finally, of course, we've seen the share price of Fairfax hit that record, I think it was an intra-session low, down to just about 50 cents this week. And he did actually speak about that too as well, the Fairfax chairman. Here's what he had to say.
Well, no, I'm not going to comment, as I said, on Gina Rinehart's comments. She's entitled to make those comments. Fairfax shares have performed much in line with other media stocks around Australia, and very, very clearly, you know, there's a very significant transitional period that we're going through, and the people are well aware of the risks involved in that transition. And whilst we would like our shares to be placed other, and we're doing our very best to manage that process, preserve the value of the papers, develop those internet sites so there are other alternatives. As you develop a more effective internet alternative, and particularly in this interim stage where we're developing the volumes before charging for that service, so in other words, you can get, at the present time, your Sydney Morning Herald free on the internet and you have to pay for it in copy. During that that period of change, yes, we understand that people do have concerns, but if you don't do it, you certainly have no future.
Now to the TV sector, James. We saw this week 10 Network come out and axe the Circle and also shorten the breakfast program as well. Were you surprised by that decision?
Yeah, a little bit surprised. People were writing it up as, oh, look, there's going to be a crisis meeting about the future of breakfast, and what came out of that was that they actually said bye-bye to the Circle, which is an underperforming part of 10's sort of morning lineup as well. And I guess when you look at it sort of from a distance and in retrospect, it's probably a better move, because there's no way, I don't think they could have expected the breakfast to be working within 6 months, and they'd like it to be working better than it is, but there's no way they would have been up and competing with the other programs in the slot. So they're going to continue that sort of experiment, if you like, hopefully come up there. Interesting, what they're going to offer in that 9 to 12 slot. They're going to have an hour of news. Ron Wilson's going to host that. Be a national bulletin, a US talk show called The Talk, and then an hour of Hollywood gossip and news, if you like, with Entertainment Tonight and The Insider.
I saw one report this morning saying that perhaps 10 is hoping that viewers may come and taste breakfast while Today is on a break. Do you think that might help at all, or...?
Yeah, and gee, I think most viewers, while Today on a break, will be looking at the Olympics. So you might get a few people. I did look at the numbers one day. I haven't kept track of them this week as much as I should have. They were actually up a little bit on one morning this week, but I don't think it was a hell of a lot. They are changing. They say it's going to be a bit more news-focused, I think, that breakfast program. So we'll have to see if that does anything. But I think they certainly need to do something different.
Yep. Just turning to the Olympics Games and the audiences, and firstly to subscription TV, and there's been some pretty amazing audience numbers viewing the Olympics. Yeah,
Foxtel came out today and quantified exactly how good it's been. It's the most watched event ever on subscription TV, the biggest audiences, the biggest shares they've ever had in their 17 years on air. So it's pretty good. They had audience peak of something like 1.2 million on Sunday night across their suite of 8 Olympic channels, an average audience just under 1 million, so it's a pretty big deal for Foxtel. And the app's been doing good business too.
How would you compare the Nine and the Foxtel coverage in terms, and also in terms of viewer numbers?
Yeah, but Nine's been doing pretty well. It's been it's higher than a lot of people predicted. And perhaps in line with expectations of others, and I sort of get heads hurting from everybody comparing it to previous Olympics and all the reasons why it's not as good or it's better. But I mean, look, there's still big audiences. That's the bottom line. I think people who've advertised it on are getting a big reach. And that's all you can expect, I think.
There are plenty of Americans, though, that are certainly upset about the coverage they've been getting from NBC. Does NBC need to do something about it, the delay, the fact that
I think they should
showing big events?
Pretty much ignore their critics, because the bulk of the audience is liking it. You know, they're getting record audiences in the US. There's a sort of a bit of a storm on Twitter, but they can't please everybody. And as people keep pointing out, look, you spend a lot of money on these rights to make a profit out of it, and you can't just go and give it all away free. You've got to curate it and sort of feed it out to where the big audiences are, and that's what NBC's been doing very successfully. Putting it on tape delay, and a lot of people can't watch it during the day. They have jobs, they've got to go to work, and they would appreciate getting home and being able to watch those highlight packages.
I guess just turning away from the Olympics, and something that's the bane of a lot of viewers' lives in terms of free-to-air is when programs run over the scheduled end time. And it's been interesting to see CBS unveil an initiative to try and let viewers know if something like that is going to happen. What do you think? I mean, could that actually be put in place here?
Yeah, CBS came out and said that they have a TV critics preview every time this year for the forthcoming season. They said, look, we'll alert our customers that when, I think Sunday Night Football is one of their big properties. I'm not sure what night of the week, I think it's Sunday. So when that's running late, if you register, we'll send you a tweet or a Facebook post saying what's going on, when you can expect your other programming to start. So it's pretty good thinking of that audience. Could they do it here? I think it'd be pretty hard to introduce here, because it's really a lot more competitive here, the way, you know, networks compete against each other by manipulating their schedules. But I think it's great to see someone really putting the audience first.
Interesting moves too in the TV space. Well, we've got a new news director joining 7 News in Melbourne, coming from print to replace Steve Carey.
Yeah, Simon Pristall. We interviewed he's the editor that took over him, Damon Johnston, just a couple of weeks ago on the show. Yeah, so Simon moving into television. 7 wants to be #1 in that news space right around the country, doing a great job in Perth and Adelaide. They've got the edge in Brisbane, but this year they've been off the pace a bit in both Melbourne and Sydney, and they've taken steps to fix that in Melbourne. So they'll be expecting Simon will make a difference down there.
Also too, we saw the release of the PricewaterhouseCoopers Media and Entertainment Outlook report, and obviously this is closely watched for which sectors are going to do well and which won't. What was, I guess, the general theme coming from the Outlook report?
Pretty big. The interesting thing about it, they take a good 5-year look at the sector. They think ad revenue over those 5 years will go up 13% overall. So they're still seeing things moving ahead. No massive big bounces there. The sectors they pulled out was subscription TV. They thought that could do pretty well. Interactive games and internet access, and so they don't just look at ad revenue. They look at all revenues in the media space. And they did note that it's good to see companies looking at revenue to sell content as well as their ad-generated revenue. And they made a big call on IPTV. They think we could have as many as 27% of the audience. I think their first port of call for video entertainment could be IPTV by 2016. So I'm not sure if that'll happen. But
yeah, it'd be interesting to look at that. Just finally as well, the TV1 announcing a restructure to try and streamline operations and a number of executives leaving.
Yeah, some of their sort of senior executives sort of left the company this week. I think they've just, they've got to look at their bottom line. We might talk a little bit about this next week, but yeah, so some pretty big manoeuvring there. And again, it's we're seeing not just newspapers, not just television, but all media players really got to look at that bottom line, how they structure their business to best returns for their shareholders.
Let's just have a quick look through the ratings. This is for week 30, starting with free to air. The top 10 first there. The MasterChef winner, big numbers for 10, as we know.
Absolutely, and the first cropping up of the Olympics there. That day one, that was actually the Saturday night. Did very well for 9.
And just turning the page, some more numbers there. The opening ceremony for 9, and more MasterChef as well in there for 10, and also the Revenge.
Yeah, I think it was the season finale. Yeah, it did very well for them.
Looking at subscription TV, the top 5 non-sport shows. First there, NRL games, AFL games, and the top 5 non-sport rather, Modern Family for Fox 8 in there.
And Nickelodeon's been getting some big audience lately for a few of their big franchises.
Just turning to some other news quickly too, out of the media sector, APN Outdoors won a big contract, or retained a big contract.
Yeah, the New South Wales bus contract. I think they call it the biggest out-of-home contract in Australia. So you see all those big network of buses in and around Sydney, and those people love getting their ads along the side of them, so they've kept that for another 5 years.
A recent guest on Mediaweek, Kerry McCallum, the editor of InStyle, is leaving, going to News Limited.
She was in there talking about her baby, her InStyle magazine, and the awards they have every year. Now she's gone and been poached by News Life Media. She's going to look after Sunday magazine, biggest selling weekly in the country. Well, it's a sort of an inserted magazine, I guess, a little bit different to what Kim Wilson does at New Ideas. So yeah, she'll start that up. I think they're going to keep her at Pacific for a little while, and they have to let her go in October, I think.
Just quickly as well, the Telstra census business, obviously it's got the yellow pages and those sorts of directories.
Sure.
The new managing director's been announced?
Yeah, it's interesting. Telstra bringing over some sort of old media people, if you like. They got Rick Ellis over from TVNZ to head their media division, and John Allen's come across from News Limited, going to look after census.
And just finally, very quickly, Michelle Laurie, gee, she's caused a stir with the comments about Brisbane.
Has she ever? Yeah.
And Radio
A little
Day.
interview about herself in the Sunday Age, but she dropped a bit of a bombshell about her former colleagues up in the Brisbane market, which is okay. Everyone knew they didn't get on, but she sort of said she hated them, and they've never really come out and explained it that sort of starkly, if you like. And also her drive show at the moment is still broadcast into Brisbane, so she called the Brisbane market sort of sexist and up there. So yeah, it's not a good look, and people are hoping the audience might forget that.
James, as always, thank you so much.
Brian.
James Manning, the editor and publisher of Mediaweek. Just time for a quick check on the share market's reaction to that ACCC giving approval to News Limited's takeover offer for Consolidated Media. Here's Stan Shamu from IG Markets.